there's a lot of pressure to show how youthful you are because you're
Yes.
still having sex.
Why
So
can't we age? We don't age. We don't age. Men are revered for aging. We're like, you can't age.
Hello and welcome to Self Talk. I'm your host, Rachel Astarte. Today, my guest is Ann Bell. She's been a love and sex coach since 2012, fostering deep connections and empowering individuals to embrace their authentic selves. We love that. She creates a safe, judgment-free space and guiding transformative journeys for her clients, exploring uncharted territories and unlocking infinite possibilities within. That sounds very, very promising. And so I just want to welcome you, Ann, and we're going to talk a little bit today about perimenopause and menopause and how it can affect our relationships and our sexuality and how to thrive during this time. And I think there's a lot for younger women to learn about this as well. But before we dive into it, I just want to say welcome to Self Talk.
Thank you, Rachel. Thanks for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
I know, we're going to dive right in.
Good.
Well, we were talking a little bit before we started recording, but if you could share what got you into this field, what was it that made you decide that you wanted to become a coach, especially in this area?
Well, as I was telling you earlier, I am a massage therapist. I have been for 26 years, and I seem to get a lot of clients that want to talk on the table. I don't get the quiet ones. And I love it because I love having the discussions. And sex is always a conversation that will come up, for women. So I just kind of naturally I want to we don't talk about sex. I know from my own personal experience as a young woman, I mean, I'm now 62. So as a young woman, we didn't talk about sex in our late years, teenage years, or, I was a married woman at the time and I knew nothing. My sex life was not good. And I knew something was missing, but I didn't know how to go about getting my needs met because we weren't able to talk about it, with my husband. So there was a lot of suffering. There was a lot of, the pleasure wasn't good. I was like, what? I just knew something was off. I just didn't know what. So then he passed away when we were both 29, suddenly. And then I'm now single again. And I'm starting to explore and understand and what my sexuality is, what is an orgasm, what is, how to get my needs met. And boy, did I have a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun exploring.
Yeah. And so was it a natural progression then that you wanted to study more and be able to help others?
Yes. So I took a course. It was 330 hours on relationships, sexology, sex, a lot of different topics. I'm very open-minded. I'm very curious about people and their sexuality and what makes them tick. So what will turn you on might not turn the next person on, but it's so interesting to find what those turn-ons are. But also I feel like I give people permission to go explore. Because they're like, am I normal? Is this too weird? I feel like a freak.
Right.
And you're not. We all have different likes and dislikes. So it's really just do it, explore, do it safely, and go find out and how to communicate with your partner about it. That's the biggest gap, is how to communicate with your partner about your sexual needs.
Yeah, that's a tough one, right?
It is, even today, even with all the information and technology, and we still struggle that component.
Yeah. What would you say is the biggest block for people that you've talked to about not expressing our needs to our partners?
I think they're afraid because they'll express, and I hear this from the men's side a lot, where they'll express a need. They would like to try something, and their partner, I'm sorry, I have allergies. Their partner might go, "Ooh, that's really weird," because it's out of their scope of what something is. They might not heard about it. It might be, they already might have a preconceived idea that this is too freaky. It's weird, so I try to tell people, when your partner approaches you, kind of keep a neutral face and don't go, ooh, just become curious. What is it about this that you like? What is it? Tell me more about it. Doesn't mean you have to do it. Just means you're gathering information about whatever it is this person wants to try. And you might need some time to research it, understand it, ask your partner more questions about it, and it doesn't mean you have to do it at all, but it does mean you're open. So your partner doesn't feel rejected and there's something wrong, because your partner's going to get their needs met with you or without you.
Yeah.
This is where they step out of the relationship, because this need could be so big for them. This desire is so big that they're going to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. That can sound very threatening. So there's a lot of push and pull here. So I love what you're saying about, like, don't say ew and use curiosity, because the other part of it is, if your partner has put themselves in a vulnerable place to ask for what they want, that's a beautiful thing. That's a trust.
Yes.
Yeah.
But because it's so threatening to the other person, what's being asked, they're not really looking at it from that perspective. They're just saying in their mind, I'm not doing this. This is too whatever they've labeled it.
Yeah.
And they're not looking at that from a place of vulnerability. And if they could just start really seeing it, your partner is being very vulnerable and they're being open. Ask more questions. Just become curious.
Yeah.
Have the conversation. Even if you're cringing inside and your mind's going, oh, no. Just keep it in your mind and tell me more. All you have to do is say, tell me more, tell me more, tell me more, until you can get a little more grounded in yourself so that you could hear what this person is saying to you.
Right. Now, what would you advise for people who, as they're doing that maybe they do have in the back of their mind, well, I don't have to say yes, but if I say no, my partner might go outside of this relationship. How would you address that kind of pressure they might feel?
I would say, let's have another conversation. Let me absorb this information. Let me do some research. Let me come back to you maybe in 2 days. Give your partner a time frame. Just don't be willy-nilly and say, okay, I'm going to get back to you. Well, when? Because your partner's anxiety is high. They've been vulnerable. They've put themselves out there with you.
Yeah.
So they need to know when you're coming back to the conversation. It could be an hour. It could be the next day. Even when you're fighting, you do this.
Yeah.
It's too much. I'm flooded with information. I can take no more. Let's have a timeout. Let me go, do what I need to nurture myself, get regrounded, get myself back in my body. And I'm coming back to open the conversation when.
Beautiful. And that's so important to have a container for that kind of discussion.
Yes.
Yeah, 100%. Beautiful. So we just dove right in there, but let's back it up a little bit. As we start looking at sexuality in midlife, so now maybe we talk about women, but before we even get there, why is sexuality important? Besides the obvious procreative purposes of sexuality, why is sexuality important in our human lives?
It's healthy for you. It's physically healthy for you to have sex. It releases tensions. It keeps your body systems all moving. It helps with your relationship. Even if you're not in a relationship, self-pleasuring masturbation is so healthy for you because it has so many physiological and emotional components that you want to have sex. But here we are in midlife, where we start perimenopause, and that can start at age 35. Women don't realize it can start as young as 35 naturally. And if you've had, cancer or other conditions, it can start younger. And it can go up to menopause. And menopause is one entire whole year without your period. Menopause actually lasts one day, and then you kind of go postmenopausal. We never say postmenopause. We just think menopause is the whole thing.
Right.
I kind of look at it, I kind of say it's the pause. It's peri, meno, and post. That's how it is, with the pause on top.
Right.
But then you go into postmenopausal. But there's so many conditions. There's such a resurgence about our hormones. We've been scared of hormone replacement therapy by a study that came out in 2002, the Women's Health Initiative, and the majority of that study has been debunked. But for 20 years, women have been deprived of hormone replacement therapy. And we have over 400 estrogen receptors in our body. Our body works with estrogen. It works with testosterone and progesterone. So these are essential hormones. And when you reach postmenopause, you have practically no estrogen in your body. And this is where all the physical symptoms, you can have them throughout, but all the physical symptoms, 80% of women will have musculoskeletal conditions. Will have pains and aches from lack of estrogen. 25% of them, it will become debilitating for them to function. High cholesterol is now, there are so many. I have a menopause resource page on my website that will have a lot of these symptoms, but ringing in the ears, dizziness, vertigo, shoulder pain, frozen shoulder. It's the symptoms are so vast now. And thank God we have some Gen X doctors that are really on the cutting edge of all of this to get women back on hormone replacement therapy, which is going to help them later in life. You get a 30% decreased risk in dementia, breast cancer, heart disease, bone health, hip fractures. So these are the reasons why you want to continue with estrogen in your body, a normal hormone it makes. Your body needs it.
Hi, it's Rachel here. If you'd like to dive deeper into your own self-development, but you're looking for an alternative to traditional talk therapy, I think you'll love the Foundation of Self Immersion program. For a full year, you'll get dynamic coursework you can complete on your own time, plus weekly coaching calls and monthly one-on-one sessions with me for personal support. Visit foundationofself.com and click on the events page for more information. That's foundationofself.com. Now, back to the episode. Right. And so I feel obligated to also address to the people who are still are hesitant about using hormone replacement. There are other natural ways to elevate your estrogen levels through the use of, through eating more soy-based products, which we're not supposed to do before we're perimenopausal, because of the fact that it can increase our chances of a risk of breast cancer. But once we hit that point where we're depleting our estrogen, we can also naturally replace it with the way that we eat, our exercise, doing weight training. So that's a beautiful option. Yeah.
There are other components, hormone replacement therapies, that it's sleep, nutrition, exercise, supplements, hormone replacement therapy. Mm-hmm. Those are the 5 components that are going to get you where you want to go with it all. Right. But there are, if you can't have hormone replacement therapy, yes, there are other remedies that you can take. To me, I personally just got on them at age 62. I've been on them a month and I'm so happy I'm on them.
Yeah.
And I have a blood clotting disorder. So it was really, my hematologist says no, my gynecologist says yes. And I'm like, if I'm going to have this blood clotting disorder, I'm going to at least, if I'm going to throw clots at any minute, I'm going to die happy. Love
it.
That's how much. But do you know, before 2002, hormone replacement therapy was either the number 1 or the number 4 prescriptions prescribed in the United States?
I believe it. Yeah.
70% of women were on hormone replacement therapy
until we were made.
Until we were made to become afraid of them. Mm-hmm. So my message is, do your research.
Yes.
Make your own decision. But the benefits now outweigh the risks. Mm-hmm. And that's what the new message is for hormone replacement therapy.
Yeah, definitely. Everyone listening, do your research. So important. Mm-hmm. And listen to what feels right to you.
Absolutely.
That's part of sexuality anyway, right? Is yes. what is something that I'm being called to do, and everyone's different, and whatever works for you, beautiful, right? That's what we want. Yeah.
But my generation, we were raised that to be afraid of hormones because it causes breast cancer. Mm-hmm. And that's not true.
Right.
And that's the message that a lot of people have about hormone replacement therapy. Mm-hmm. And that's the inaccurate message that's trying to be turned around so people can make informed choices based on facts. Mm-hmm. And that wasn't a fact.
Right. And so important. That's one of the reasons for anything is do your own research. Do your own research. Make sure you're looking at the scholarly papers, the peer-reviewed papers, not just, it's very
Well, it was interesting. I even brought studies to me with my doctor, to my hematologist. And he was I'll do my own research. And I'm like, doctor, but these are studies I'm bringing to you, peer reviewed. I mean, I got a lot of resistance from him. He really pushed back a lot with me. And, and it was a very interesting process, but this is what we're getting because the doctors have not been kept up to date. They don't have a lot of menopause training in what menopause is. So they're going to give you for your depression and here's the other thing with menopause, it changes your brain chemistry. If you feel you're losing your mind,
yes,
you're not. Your brain is
correct.
Physically changing in perimenopause and menopause. And I sailed through my perimenopause. Honestly,
good for you.
it really. I mean, I had hot flashes. I just was kind of like, all right, I can deal with this until I hit it a year ago. And a year ago is when I felt I was postmenopausal and I felt all the aches and pains. And I said, and I was really like, I had a lot of anxiety and depression. I'm like, where did I go? I was fun. I enjoyed life. And I'm like, where did I go? And it was actually very frightening for me to not be able to feel what my essence was.
Yeah.
And I lost my sex drive. Now I love sex. And I'm like, where'd my sex drive go? What happened to it?
Yeah. Let's talk about that for a second in that time of life. So I'm also postmenopausal, and my perimenopause was not fun at all. But everything you're talking about is so true. I literally thought I was going insane.
Yes.
And there was not a lot of literature to help. And there certainly weren't menopausal mentors readily available, right? So, which is one of the reasons why I think talking about this is so important. There's something else that I remember going through at that time, which was feeling an immense pressure to be sexual after menopause. So that somehow this is how you can tell you're still a woman, is if you still have a sex drive after menopause. And I wonder if you can address that, because some people will naturally lose their sex drive, but it is replaced with something else intimate or powerful within them. There's a lot of pressure to show how youthful you are because you're still having sex.
Why can't we age? We don't age. We don't age. Men are revered for aging. We're like, you can't age. It's the craziest thing what's been done to women. And we do it to ourselves. Excuse me, what society does. Oh my God. See, look, I just lost it. You had a really good thought and
the pressure to be sexual after menopause, the pressure to be a sexual woman.
So here it is. This is what I find is that women are very busy. They're in their heads. They're very stressed. Right. We're doing 100 million things. So you're a mother, you're a wife, you're an employee, you're a business owner. Your life is, you got kids, you got maybe sick parents at the same time, elder parents, younger kids. You are all over the place. And we don't make any time to have sex. There's no, I don't know why we put ourselves on the back burner. But here's what happened, I find, at menopause, is you're now asking yourself the question, what about me? Mm-hmm. When do I get mine? I've done all of these things. I've sacrificed. I've done what I wanted to do. It's a choice. You want to be a mother, a wife, whatever your role was. And now you're tired. Mm-hmm. You're like, I'm really tired of this gig. Right. What's the next one? Where do I count? What's in it for me? When do I get to do what I want to do? Mm. So I think this is the spiritual aspect of menopause, is that women are asking themselves, what's the next journey for me? What do I want to do? Because I don't think many women have asked themselves these questions. Yeah. And I think that's a really important point. I think in our 30s, we do ask ourselves that question, but it's more of an ambition question. Mm-hmm. Who do I want to be? How am I showing up in the world? Not that that's a bad thing. But then, as you're saying, with once we've figured that out, whether we want to be a mother or a wife or a business owner or a, animal caretaker or, whoever your family is, once we figured that out, and maybe we want to be child free, or maybe we want to be single, and we just, whatever the choices are, all wonderful. But there's something that happens in midlife, right? Where we really take stock of, it's not ambition anymore. I think you're right. I think it's something more spiritual. It's existential. Mm-hmm. What are we doing with our life? What have we done and what do we want our life to look like? Yes. Right. And so in terms of sexuality, there is a lot of societal pressure because of the fact that, if you just open up Yahoo News, right, and you're looking at any story about a woman in midlife, it is inevitably about how she can still look good in a bikini, or how she hardly ever has any wrinkles on her face, or what is she, is she letting herself go gray? Instead of what are her achievements as a human being, as a woman, right? And we tend to
compartmentalize older women into the sexy ones and the productive ones.
Right.
Right. Like the political women, you hardly ever see a sexy politician in her 50s and 60s, right? They're not talking about that. So again, there's this sexual thread. Why do we stay attractive except for sex? That's the implication.
Yeah. And see, I find I get caught up in that too. I'm 62, I'm getting older, and I'm like, but I want to stay young. I dye my hair, otherwise it's going to be white. You have this whole conundrum going on in your head.
Yeah.
But I don't want to do those things anymore. You spend a third of your life in menopause in this stage. And I do think it's a point where it came to the point where because I never thought of aging. Honestly, I never really didn't give it that, because I was vital. I was just chugging along until I didn't, which was this year, between, certain things were happening health-wise, which I've never been challenged with before. And it really stopped me in my tracks and went, what is happening here? And how am I going to handle this? I am getting older. I am aging. It is happening. Biologically, it's a phase. But I think you take the time to stop and smell those roses, process that. And how am I going to live my life, sexually? I mean, I'm a sexy person. I don't want to lose that vitality. I dress for myself. I do a lot of things just for me that bring me internal pleasure and external pleasure. Yeah. So it's important for you to define what that means for you. What does it all mean for you? And we also get caught up with the only sex that there is penis and vagina sex.
Right.
Oh my God.
Good point.
There is more to sex than penis in vagina sex. There are many other different ways. I have a client, what is she, 79, her and her husband. She's got a bad back. He's got bad knees and shoulders. They love sex. They're still having she says, we just figure it out differently. We figure out what positions because sex is important to them. Yeah. It's important to maintain that bond. They want the sexual pleasure. They want the bond. It's important to their relationship. So they figure it out differently with their aches and pains, how to do it.
Right. And that focus, and then also what needs to shift, I think, too, when I work with clients in sexuality based work, is letting go of the need for the climax as well.
Oh my God, if we could stop with the orgasm nonsense. Yes, it's delightful. Yes, I'm not saying not to have it.
Oh, no, of course not. That's not the
it
focus.
Doesn't have to be the goal.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be the goal. And there's so many other things that are pleasurable just to be bonded, connected, and held. And, there's so much more to it. And I think at this stage, that's what people are looking for more, is that type of connection.
Yes. We're getting the oxytocin. We're getting the endorphin rush. We're getting the connection of skin to skin, which since we're babies, we need that to survive, and thrive. Beautiful. So let's talk to our younger women for a moment. As and they're thinking, well, I'm not looking forward to that time when my sex drive might diminish or my estrogen levels might plummet. What's some great advice for them to prepare for or get their mindset right in a non-pathological way about what will be happening to their bodies? Now, I think it's really important. You touched on this, and I want to stress it because it's so important. We are all, if all goes well, we are all going to age. And that has to be normalized.
Yes.
We have to start understanding that, you can push it over here or say that your aging process is going to be different from everybody else's. And if you can figure it out, great. But most likely for most of us, we are aging every minute. So if we normalize this process of aging and we see more women like yourself who are thriving in her midlife and her sexuality, what are some things that younger women can do to mentally or physically prepare themselves for this transitional time?
I think within the next 5 years, they are going to get inundated with menopausal information, which is going to be great. It's going to become very normalized for them. Within 10 years, it's going to be very normal, where there's going to be so much conversation. They're going to get educated. I think right now is to prepare yourself that, yes, normalize aging, do a little research. What can you do now? What is it that you need to do? What they're discovering now is as we get older, how we exercise. You know, they're so young. They're doing the hard exercises to keep them at this age. That's not what your bodies need. So you're going to look forward to the transitions that are going to happen and don't be frightened of it. It's like any step of life. It's ebb and flows. It's not a straight line. It's going to spiral. It's going to ebb and flow. And these are all lessons to teach us about ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
And how we can thrive in life. Excuse me. So that's the first thing I would say is just be open, be curious, and just realize that this is part of life, being a woman, and it's going to happen, and it can be done, I think, gracefully. And just if you know what the symptoms are, you can help it along the way with nutrition, exercise. And you don't have to be to start hormone replacement therapy. You don't have to be menopausal. You can start, if contraception's not a problem, you can start much earlier. They transition you on hormone replacement therapy. And it's much, much less than what birth control pills are that you're given. So there's a lot of things that you can do to prepare yourself. But I think the fear of aging, it is going to happen, but it can be done well.
Right. Because it's not aging, I think. The change can be frightening. This is not the body I'm used to. This is not the face I'm used to. This is not the hair I'm used to. This is, my body doesn't do the same things it used to do. But there's also the positive aspect of mentally dropping so much that we used to obsess about.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, to me, I'll take a little back pain to get rid of all that stuff. You know what I mean? It does. And we can, take care of our bodies as best we can. But I love what you said. The way that we work out in our 20s and 30s is not, and even maybe into our 40s, is not going to be how we do in our 50s and 60s. I was I wouldn't say I was a gym bunny, but I was really, really physically active. And when I had a child later in life. And so for me, it was like, I went from being a new mother to almost immediately going into perimenopause. And it was really, really shocking. And I realized, oh my gosh, my body is pulling me in all these different ways, some of it without my control. And the day that I finally realized I don't have to push myself the way that I used to, and I could relax, a little bit more, my body and my mind, oh my gosh, it was just like, it gave me much more energy than working out for 2 hours might have done. Not that I
have a lot of conversations about this, and the resistance that I get from women, like their bodies are breaking down, but they don't want to give up their cross training. They don't want to give up their running. They don't want to, their obsessiveness. We have, with our bodies, and all of our thought process about how we should look and our dieting and eating disorders and our disordered eating, I should say, we get obsessive. So we don't want to let go of some of this.
Right.
But I think at a certain age, you're forced to say, okay, my body wants something different. Let me start listening. Let me start listening. And I trust me, if you do that sooner than later, your body's going to be so much happier.
100%. I couldn't agree with you more. And if there were one wish that I could have for younger women, is to start listening to your body instead of feeling like it has control over you, or you're trying to wrangle it into being something. And that's a hard ask. But yeah, I agree 100%. As soon as you start getting into that communication with your body, spirit, mind, body, all of that, the easier your transition is going to be. And it isn't just one transition.
Oh no.
We call menopause the change, but that's just the first part of it. And then we're moving into our older years, into our 70s, 80s, 90s, 100s. We're really capable of doing that if we're taking care of our bodies. So, getting into that work now is inner work now is so important. One question that I would love to ask you, maybe we'll end with this one. If someone is not feeling their sexuality, where could they start to maybe bring it back? So maybe they've just decided, all right, that's it. I'm perimenopausal, postmenopausal. I give up my sex life. Clearly, I'm just not going to have it anymore. They don't maybe necessarily want it to be that way, but they're just not feeling it. Where can they start? Besides the hormone replacement therapy, like mentally, what can be done?
Well, I think when you're physically, there's two reasons I believe women stop having sex is at this menopausal stage, because their bodies, they're not feeling good. They're not feeling well about themselves. So know the symptoms of menopause, know what's happening so you can put it in perspective and go, I'm not losing my mind. These are symptoms. There are steps I can take to feel better. And then you can work on now that I'm physically feeling better, mentally, I can start working on my sex drive again. Now I can go back and feel juicy and nurture myself. What did I like about sex? What brought me pleasure? What brings me pleasure? A lot of self-exploration. It's different now. So those are some of the things. And what are the blocks? And I think the second thing is partner. Mm-hmm. If you're partnered and you didn't like the sex before menopause, you're certainly not going to like it after. And it's your excuse to say no, because your partner, whatever the partner issue is, they could be bad lovers, or they're selfish, or, you've just had enough of that nonsense. Mm-hmm. It's the light switch. Okay, this is it. It wasn't good before. It's not going to get better. I'm done with this aspect.
Right. Okay.
And
hire a coach.
Yeah.
Get yourself some help. We have to learn we can't do it all by ourselves.
Right. And it has to start with you. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You have to, you can have these outside influences, but to take a look at yourself, why is this happening? I like sex and now I don't. Why? Where's the disconnect?
Yeah. Beautiful. That's such a great question. And that's a beautiful place to start. Let me ask myself, what changed? Right?
Yes. Yeah, it's always about us. It's always, and and I did an exercise that was really eye-opening. I took every decade. I started in my 20s. You can start in childhood, but I went through the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, what every decade meant. I wrote down some words, what the decades were for me. And then I just labeled, came up with chapters, and I'm like, wow, this is what I was doing throughout. Mm-hmm. So I found that to be an interesting exercise to let me know, to do a little reflection, to know where I was and where I'm going.
Beautiful. I love that. So I invite everybody to try that exercise. Yeah. That's excellent. So, Anne, how can people find you?
My website is aconfidentialconversation.com. Mm-hmm. I have a free love assessment, a free Love Your Libido book that you can partake in. I'm actually starting a gratitude and pleasure challenge tomorrow. And I actually made a massage video for couples and people to learn how to massage each other, including the vulva and the penis.
Oh, wow. Fantastic.
Yes. So that hopefully will be out in November.
Okay. Right. So this will probably be January by the time people are hearing this new year. So great way to start your new year. And I will have all of these links in the show notes, including the link to your Love Your Libido book and your self-love assessment quiz. Annabelle, thank you so much for this amazing conversation.
Thank you, Rachel, for having me. It was a pleasure.
Hi, this is Rachel Astarte from the Self-Talk Podcast. I'd love for you to send me your emails with questions or stories about yourself. What are you looking for? What are your questions? What are you grappling with in your own personal life that has to do with your identity, with yourself, with your very existence? These are the things that we're going to talk about during the podcast. And go ahead. It's all right. Get deep. I can handle it. So send them to Rachel@selftalkpodcast.com. And I'll see you on the next episode.